Hello YouTube and welcome to Working Class Education. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about basic trigonometry. We'll get into this a little more in depth and detail later with some good books, but here are just some basics. So trigonometry has everything to do with right triangles. A right triangle has one 90-degree or square corner. The longest side is always the hypotenuse, and it's always opposite the 90-degree angle. So this is always your hypotenuse. So, a few basic things. Now when you're dealing with a 45-degree angle, all of this is very simple. Just remember, if this side and this side are the same. But if you didn't have the same angle, so a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Meaning, if you have any two sides, you can find the third one. So 2.25 squared plus 2.25 squared is 10.125. The square root of that is 3.189. So that means that this line has to be 3.189 or whatever. And that's 2.25. Now, like I said, with a 45-degree angle, all you have to do is remember up 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. You know, you go up 1 inch, you go over 1 inch, connect those two lines, that's always going to be a 45-degree angle. This is the angle we're talking about. There's the hypotenuse, the adjacent side, and the opposite side. For the longest time, I was always very confused, but the angle you're talking about determines which side is which. The hypotenuse is always over here, opposite the 90-degree angle. But if I'm talking about this angle, then this side touching it is the adjacent. This side is the opposite. Now, if I was talking about this angle, then this would be the adjacent, and this would be the opposite. It depends on what angle you're talking about. So, here again, here's the formula to find anything. Remember, I've heard it called Sakatoa. I can't remember that. I like some old horse came a-hoppin' through our alley. It's hard to see. Some old horse came a-hoppin' through our alley. Remember that, because that is sine equals opposite divided by hypotenuse. Cos equals adjacent divided by hypotenuse. Tan or tangent, this is sine, cosine, tangent equals opposite over adjacent. Now, the way I remember this, and you can do it shorthand, sine equals opposite over hyp, cosine equals adjacent over hyp, tangent equals opposite over adjacent. Now, what you're doing is trying to figure out which one you have and which one you need. So in this case, I'm talking about this angle. I knew the length of this side. And again, 45 is easy because I just automatically know it's the same, but let's say it wasn't. So I'm talking about this angle. I know the adjacent. I'm looking for the opposite. So I know the adjacent. I'm looking for the opposite. If you have this on the bottom, you multiply it. If you have whatever's on the top, you divide it. So adjacent is 2.25 times tangent button on your calculator, the degrees, 45, equals 2.25. Again, 45 degrees, it's easy. If it was 30 degrees, I don't have my calculator right here, but you know, if you have some weird angle, it works. And then once you find out these two angles, or these two side lengths, you can figure out that side length. Also, another note, all the angles of a triangle, meaning all three corners, always equal 180 degrees. That's why this is 90, that's 45, that has to be 45. Because 180 minus 90 minus 45 leaves you with 45. So that's another good rule to remember. All three sides, all three angles always equal 180 degrees. So if you have two angles, you know the other one. So again, this is just a very brief overview. I know it's hard to kind of read, I'm writing on my wood. But the reason I'm showing you all this is because I needed to figure out how long that was, because I'm putting cross members on there. So this was 28 and 11/16 or 28.6875, and this side, where is it, is exactly 28. So it's not exactly a square. So that's fine. I don't need to know the angles. I just need to know. I wanted to know how long do I make this board in order to reach both those corners. So 28.6875 squared plus 28 squared is 1606 and some change. Square root that is 40.0870. So I did 40 and a half. That means I have more than enough. And then I had a 4.5 inch board. Each one of these is 2 1/4. So that means I know the distance from here to here. And if you really wanted to do some crazy math, you could figure this out. But all I did was I put this board underneath and I lined up my center line of the board on each corner. And then I just marked it out. And that should be, because I'm sure that as much as I like to think so, this probably isn't an exact perfect 90 degrees. I'm sure it's damn close. But real world situation, working class situation, I'm going to mark it as it sits instead of the math, okay? Because I could go, okay, well that's 3.81. Well then I could figure out, okay, from here to here is 125, or 2 2/4, here and here's 2 2/4. This line measure all that out, and it'd be perfect. So anyway, that's just a brief overview of some real world application of trigonometry. Again, you'll see it worked out pretty well on this one. You can see my triangle. Remember, right triangles. That's all trigonometry is. I have a couple good books that we'll be looking at if you really need to learn trig. To be honest with you, with calculators, it's kind of obsolete. You can actually get apps on your smartphone that do all this stuff for you, but it's a good skill to know. Okay, bye.